Welcome everyone. I'm hoping that I can do this quite quickly because I just came back from a whole week of exhaustion. So if you don't know, I medically retired from the Marine Corps and I compete in some sports that are adaptive to people's disabilities. Specifically, I do archery, shooting with air rifle, and I do powerlifting, which is only chest press. And I'm working on cycling, but the way my hips and knees are set up, I don't know exactly how that's gonna go. But I wanted to come in. It's Wednesday. I'm supposed to be posting a video today, and I didn't have anything because I haven't read at all. So I was like, you know what? Let me show y'all all of the books that I have read this year so far. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. So the first book I finished reading this year was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is the first book. And if you don't know what Harry Potter is about because you've been living under a rock your entire life, it's about a young boy who finds out that he's a wizard. He gets to escape his life with his terrible uncle and aunt. His parents had tragically been murdered by an evil wizard, and he gets to explore the wondrous world of that J.K. Rowling had created and explore Hogwarts, his school that he goes to, a magic school. We just basically go on the journey with him to meet new friends, kind of find his place in the world, and it's a really nice coming of age story. Each book is 1 year of his school, so this will be the first year that he is in school for, and he's like 12, 13, 11. He's one of those. He's one of those. There's lots of fun different elements in this that J.K. Rowling created. Her magic system isn't necessarily explained, so we'd call that I say we, the fantasy genre people, whatever, on BookTube would call that a soft magic system because there's not hard magical rules to her system. It's just kind of like there, and you get to enjoy it. The first two books are very wholesome. This book's very wholesome. 5-star for me. I'm glad I have my little thing on the side because I was about to forget to put in my ratings. This is a middle grade. According to Storygraph, its little genres, it's fantasy fiction, middle grade, adventurous, lighthearted, and fast-paced, which I agree with all of those things. The next book I have is a classic that my husband suggested that I read, and I read this when I went back home to Florida in January, and it took me forever, or what felt like forever, to read this book. It felt kind of difficult to read for some reason. This is The Call of the Wild by Jack London. It is kind of hard to read, especially because you're reading from a dog's point of view and you're reading about things that are, at least for me, it's not something that I was very familiar with. Like, I'm not familiar with dog sledding or snow or anything from that. I'm from Florida, like the absolute opposite to everything that's happening in here. And there was some of the writing where I just wasn't following along very well. And I don't think that's the author's fault. I just think that I wasn't completely there for this story. But I want to say I rated this like a 4.5 or a 4.25 or something like that. I forget the specifics, but it's somewhere in and around there. The writing is good. It's just that I felt, for me personally, I couldn't follow it for some reason. The story is good. You follow a dog who gets taken from his comfy, cushy life and ends up having to do dog sledding, and he goes through his own traumas. And I'm like, I feel like if we were to read this in high school, which I know some people have, but my school didn't, I feel like no one's going to come out of that school abusing animals because this is just so tragic. Like, if you have any ounce of empathy, you know, you're just going to want to go to the dog shelter immediately and adopt all of the dogs after reading this. And if you have any sort of trauma with, say you're in a household that like abused animals and like you couldn't do anything about it, or if you've seen people abusing animals, or you know, any of those sort of things, this will not necessarily be a book for you because it is very hard and it can hit close to home for people who, you know, I mean, anyone, any animal lover, this is going to hurt, and it definitely hurt reading it. It was very, very sad. Again, really liked it though because the writing was good and the storytelling was very, very good, and I did really like having a different perspective than what I normally read from. Like, I don't normally read from a dog's perspective on the world, so did enjoy it. According to Storygraph, it is a fiction book. Of course, it's a classic. Adventurous, emotional, and medium-paced. I would say it's medium to fast-paced, honestly. But I finished this in January. January 18th, finished this January 7th. And then I got into my Percy Jackson reading sprints, I guess, because I really wanted to finish this series. This is the third book in the series, so not much that I want to explain about this one. I think that, oh yeah, I started like highlighting in this book to see how I'd feel about highlighting. Honestly, I think tabbing is for me over highlighting. As you can see, my Harry Potter books, all of them will be tabbed, and I really enjoy tabbing. I think that that is superior to highlighting, but highlighting is good too if you want to combine them. Very off topic from the book, but let me just go ahead and talk about like all 3 of these books at the same time because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But this is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th installment in Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. You follow a young boy whose name is Percy, and he finds out that he's a demigod, and that being in New York, at least I'm pretty sure he's from New York. Anyway, just being in the regular, like, civilian world is not safe for him, so he has to go to Camp Half-Blood, and he gets to meet a lot of other kids who are like him, and he figures out, like, all these monsters are out to get him because he's a child of one of the big 3, so his scent is stronger than other kids. I think that it's a really cool like Greek mythological retelling, you know, just playing on Greek mythology. I've never been a Greek mythology person, so you don't have to go in and like know everything because I knew nothing about Greek mythology, and I don't believe that these are necessarily accurate to the original stories, but these are fun retellings. Great for kids, in my opinion. I think it's great for anyone. I know a lot of people compare it to Harry Potter, and I think that that's unfair to Harry Potter being first, and this and Harry Potter being very, very different. And this series does not mature in the same way that Harry Potter matures. Like, I'm on the 4th Harry Potter book and I can already see it getting darker, and this one just kind of felt very fast-paced the entire time. Really, really enjoyed the Battle of the Labyrinth. Probably my favorite book. The adventure in that story is so good. These are all, I want to say these are all 5 stars. This one, I think, might be a 4.75, actually, the 3rd book, The Titan's Curse. And then I think these 2 are 5 stars, but the 4th one is just, it's very, very good. I love the adventure. I love how things are tying together so well. Of course, The Last Olympian is fun to read because you've got, you know, final battles and things like that. But yeah, the 4th book is just something special to me, and I think, like, I would enjoy rereading that. But I don't know that I would necessarily want to reread the whole series because it's definitely for like middle grade and below. So according to Goodreads, these are fiction, fantasy, middle grade. The 3rd one, adventurous, funny, fast-paced, and the same with the 2nd one. But then the last one, the 5th one, says that it is emotional, which true. There definitely is some emotional stuff in the series as it goes along. Next book that I read, oh, I didn't even tell you the dates. All right, I finished The Titan's Curse January 24th, finished The Battle of the Labyrinth February 4th, finished The Last Olympian February 9th, and then Elantris I finished February 14th. And this is my first book that I read by Brandon Sanderson. I have a video where I go into, honestly, my vlogs, I go into all of these books, but just to kind of summarize, if I can, there is this group of people that used to be basically like deities in this city and the surrounding cities, and they get taken over by this sort of disease which makes them dead, or that they are dead and are dying, and their skin is like falling apart, but they used to be beautiful and silver and mystical and used to be able to perform magics. But then once this I forget if it's the Roud or the Shoud, but once it takes over, they are doomed, basically. And then it feels kind of dystopian in a way because they're all in this one part of the city, and basically the mercenaries who become now the higher-ups, they shut the doors and lock them in there because they're like, they are crazy, they're like animalistic, they just want food and they can't think straight, they're like zombies in a way. And that feels kind of dystopian to me, like dystopian within a fantasy, because the mercenaries and the other townspeople can come up the stairs and they can look into these people who are dying and how beautiful they used to be versus how they are now. And they don't give them food, they don't do anything good for them. And one day someone important is taken and he goes into the city. And so you follow him and his journey within the city and like him trying to figure out what happened to these people. What happened to the magic that they used to perform, what happened to their beautiful hair and beautiful skin. And then you also follow his wife-to-be, who comes in, and according to their laws, if your spouse-to-be dies, you're automatically married to them, even if you're just engaged. So she comes over and she's basically married to him, so she has to take over the position of a princess. And I do really like her character, and I like the prince's character. I think that I like both of their personalities. I will say, Brandon Sanderson, he did make me mad because he talked about the princess, if you want to call her that. He talked about her height so many times, and it was very, very pointless. Like, there was nothing that was like, oh yeah, he put this in for this sort of like allegory or this sort of thing. No, he just mentioned it so many times. And I was like, why do you keep telling me that she's tall? I don't care. I don't. And that was just annoying to me. It really just started taking me out the story. And then there was a couple times where he showed, told, and showed again when it came to descriptions and like sentence after sentence, just like that. And I was like, why can't you just show me? Or just tell me. Don't show me twice and tell me once. Like that, it's too much. That didn't make any sense to me. Other than that, this book, I want to say, this one was just a 4-star for me because there were times where I was getting taken out the story, but I did actually like the story. There was a part of the villain story that I felt was not fleshed out, and it could have been, but it was very like, why did you add this at the very end sort of thing with the villain. According to Storygraph, this is a fiction fantasy. It's adventurous, mysterious, and medium paced, which I would agree. I think that it was like, I read the beginning of it and it felt slower, and then I read like 600 pages in a day or something like that. No, this book isn't even 600 pages. What am I talking about? 400? I don't know. There was a day where I read like over half of this book or something like that. And I had to know what happened. And I was also fueled by my anger of Brandon Sanderson calling her tall, where I was like, how many times is he going to bring this up? I started tabbing it and I got way too lazy to continue tabbing it. I was like, no, this is taking too much work. And this is just barely in the beginning, 75 pages that he mentions it that many times, as you can see. It's too much. It's too much. All right. Now that I'm being repetitive, 4-star. It was good. Good fantasy. He does say that this is his weakest novel, so I will be continuing with Brandon Sanderson, but I know that there are some repetitive issues that he has that is just within his prose, and I don't think it's to be more simple, it's just that he's being repetitive and redundant for no reason. But anyway, it was something. Alright, so then I read Dune, which I rated a 4.25. Originally, I was thinking, oh, this is gonna be a 5-star. It wasn't because it took me so long to read, and I felt like I was kind of forcing myself through this book. It's like 680 pages of sci-fi. You're confused for half of the book, and then the next half, like, you kind of start getting what's going on. The basic premise is that you have this boy, Paul, and his family are on this planet Caladan, and then they get sold Arrakis Dune, the desert planet, and they have to travel there, leave their lives, and they know that they're going into a trap, but they don't know exactly how everything is going to go down. So you kind of were wondering, like, why is he walking into this trap? Why is Duke Leto walking into this trap if he knows what it is? And you basically just follow how different the lives are on Dune, how water is so essential to them because it's a desert planet, and everything is uprooted for them and changed, and there is tragedy, there is lots of sci-fi elements. I am not the best person to explain this book. It is very difficult to explain for me, but this planet has this thing called spice on it, which the other people of the planet are mining because it's their most valuable, most important resource. And they're trying to do something about it, bring a stop to it, trying to control it. And there's also sandworms that are gigantic and eat people and anything that makes any sort of noise out in the desert. And it is a series, but you can read it as a standalone. I think Frank Herbert is very smart. I did like his family dynamics and I did like his prose. It just felt like it was very long and drawn out, and that I got very confused, and I felt like not smart enough to understand and read this book. The movies definitely make the understanding easier, so if you've read the book and you go watch the movies and you're like, oh, okay, or vice versa, you'll understand whichever better, in my opinion, because watching the movie, I was like, if I didn't read the book, I would be confused. Okay, so 4.25, at the end of the day, it's good. Would I recommend it? Not really to everyone. According to Storygraph, it is a fiction, classic science fiction. Agree with all that. It's adventurous, challenging, and slow-paced, which I definitely also agree with all of those things. Next book I read is Babel. Now, I really, really enjoyed this book. It's a 4.5 for me. basically, this book follows a boy who goes through some tragic things and is taken away from his home life in China because he really has nowhere else to go because the plague had taken away his family. This Englishman comes up and says, hey, come live with me, but you have to make a deal with me that you're going to study these languages and you're going to go to the School of Babel to become a translator. And that's our agreement. That's all you have to do. I will give you free everything else. And so he does that and then goes to Babel and then realizes that Babel is supporting colonialism. And so he kind of has to choose between this love of knowledge and what Babel can give to him and the future that Babel can give to him versus the love for his homeland and country and the people there. And he's a very flawed main character. All of the main characters in here are very flawed. They will make you very angry, but I think the ending was good. There were some things that would take me out of the story sometimes. I thought the book would go one way and that goes to another, but I think that although colonialism can be a very hard topic to handle and you could go one way with it, I think that R.F. Kuang did a really, really good job of being able to write a story that included it, and she wanted to tell her story. She didn't want to just talk about colonialism. She wanted to tell this story and add in colonialism and the racism that her main characters had to endure and the sexism that her main characters had to endure, and I think that she handled the topic very, very well. According to Storygraph, this is a fiction, fantasy, historical, literary, so I would agree it is a literary fiction in the forefront with some fantastical elements. Basically just the magic is translation, and that was one of my favorite things, is just all the talks about language, all the talks about translation. That was my favorite part about this book, was her magic system. And if you don't like language, if you don't really care about translation and those kind of things, you may not like this book because she does go on and on about words and how they relate to each other. I loved it because I'm going to school for Spanish and I want to be a translator, so I loved it. It was definitely for me. And then, yes, like I said, fantastical elements. Challenging, kind of. Dark, definitely. Emotional, definitely. Medium paced. I would say medium to fast, in my opinion. And I finished this March 27th. Forgot to tell you, I'm terrible at this. Dune, I finished March 12th. And then on to the next are the second and third Harry Potter books. I've already told you about Harry Potter. This one was I think this one is a 4.5 or 4.75, the second book, and then the third book is a 5-star for sure. Fiction, fantasy, middle grade, adventurous, mysterious, medium paced. I would say that they're both fast paced. You can tell that the pace slows down a little bit on the third book. Darker things start happening. You get a bit more mature, and even as you go into the fourth one, you get more mature with emotions and themes. And I have videos on all of the first 3 books, and I will continue to make more videos on the rest. The first 3, I have vlogs of non-spoiler and spoiler, and then as I get into the 4th book, I will start off my video probably with some non-spoiler thoughts, and then I will go into my spoiler thoughts. Just be able to update you guys like that. Finish this one April 7th, and this one April 14th, and then I have barely started the 4th one, so we'll see where we go with that. I have been really enjoying Harry Potter. The story definitely has some nostalgia for me because I grew up with the movies, though I don't remember everything that happened, so it's making it even more enjoyable. I do think, non-biasedly, I do think that any age could enjoy these books. I think that she can create this nostalgia even if you don't have nostalgia for the series, if that makes sense. Like if you've never read it before, you still get those same feelings and those same like warm, cozy feelings, and then you continue reading and you're like, whoa, this isn't just a kid's book. Like this stuff is serious. There's some important themes in here. There's some important stuff about family and friendships and everything. Let's see. For both of these, it's fiction, fantasy, middle grade, adventurous, mysterious, and medium paced. I think I already said that. I'm like losing steam here. But yeah, so that was like the 10 books that I read this year so far. And if y'all want a video of me talking about the books that I plan to read, the books that I'm nervous to read, then I will let you know. I do have a TBR video that nobody watched, which is fine. I don't really care. Such is life. I was going somewhere with that. So these are all the books that I read so far in this quarter-ish of the year, a little bit over a quarter. I've been having a good time. I've been having a good reading year. My goal was 12 and I'm at 10. So like 12 for the entire year. And I'm already at 10. So I'm like, okay, My cat is getting upset because I haven't fed him yet. All right, well, let me know what y'all have read this year. Have I helped encourage you to read? Have I helped encourage you to read a certain book or a certain series, certain genre? Are you interested in reading fantasy and sci-fi? Are you still not convinced? Like, let me know what I need to do to convince you to read fantasy, because I will do it, because I love fantasy. Sci-fi is okay. I enjoy it, but I feel like I get my escapism more from fantasy. I get my enjoyment more out of it. So let me know what y'all want to see, and let me know what y'all have liked and disliked about all my videos, but please don't be mean because I will be unwell. But yeah, be nice to everyone in the comments. Try not to do spoilers about any of these books because this is just, here's what I read. I'm rambling, so I'm gonna go. Let me know. My cats are fighting. Let me know what is y'all's plans for the rest of the year. Has it been a good reading year? Has it been a bad reading year? Just let me know. All right, I'm gonna go because otherwise I'm just gonna keep talking. We don't